and into the pesky pole. And that's going to get down the line. That one looks like it'll stay fair. And goodbye, home run. The pesky pole.
The 2-2, swinging a fly ball deep down the right field line, slicing by the pesky pole. And that ball hits the pesky pole, which means it's gone, a home run.
3-2, high fly down the right field line, slicing toward the pesky pole into the corner, and that ball is gone. A green can. Now with a high fly down the right field line, headed toward the pesky pole. Is he going to tuck it inside? Indeed he does. That is gone.
Welcome to another episode of the Pesky Podcast. I'm your host, the Ritt. With me is the OG, our head writer, Mr. George Sutherland. George, what's going on, man? How you doing?
I'm doing great. Had a chance to watch a little bit of playoff baseball yesterday. It was entertaining, and I think somebody's commented on the fact that the Phillies are on the revenge tour, and it looks like it. So, looks postseason baseball's in play, and hey, we're not in it, but I can sure enjoy it.
Yeah, postseason is done, but the guy we have on, his job is not done. This man is a stage manager for NESN. He's the guy that helps, set everything up, make sure everything runs smoothly for what we listen to when we listen to Sox games and much more. Let's bring him straight in here. Ryan Anderson.
What's going on, guys? Thank you for having me on. That was quite the introduction.
Hey, if it wasn't for you, we would not be able to securely listen to some of the great play-by-play that we listen to on MLB, NESN, all that.
Yeah.
So thank you for coming on and giving us some time of yours. Everybody, we get players on, we get, other people on. You're the first stage manager.
Yeah, I figured I probably would be, as far as, anybody representing the broadcasting team, at least from, we'll say, kind of the control room side of things, not the talent side of things. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely probably a first for you guys and a first for many, but there's a lot of things that I've been I wouldn't say a part of, but just being around the guys in the booth at Fenway throughout the past 5 or 6 years, a lot of stories that I can share. So glad to be joining the conversation and kind of add into anything that I can.
Yeah. We're in talks right now to bring on Riley Pay from Portland.
Yep.
And that right there, the 1-2 combination of her and Emma, the first, they were the first female broadcast team, right?
Right.
I believe so. Yeah. At the and done so at the minor league level. They've been really phenomenal. A lot of fun to listen to.
They are great. I live south of Portland, and I pick up the Sea Dogs broadcast, and they do a terrific job.
Yep. No, they get a lot of kudos from the guys, at Fenway, OB, TC, Jemai, things like that. So it's definitely good to see them doing their thing and getting out there as well.
So Ryan, how does somebody get a job like what you have? I've got to wonder myself, because what you get to do, who you get to hang out with, what you get to set up is very, very special.
Yeah. So to take you guys back a little bit, I'm originally from Fort Myers, Florida. I went to Florida Gulf Coast, which I'm sure you guys both know of. 2 of the starters in the rotation both are a part of the alma mater there, Chris Sale and Cutter Crawford. So being a part of that from that area, that's how I was able to get the opportunity with NESN. I actually worked closely with the baseball communications director there, kind of just helping him out in his office. And one day he had turned to me. He was like, "Hey, I've got this opportunity with the Red Sox." And I had grown up a Red Sox fan. My dad's originally from Boston. I was raised in Florida, I should say. But I was, pretty much ever since I could pick a side, I was a Red Sox fan first, and then I became a New England sports fan. The rest. So as soon as he turned to me and was like, "Hey, I have this opportunity with the Red Sox," I wanted to work in sports. I didn't necessarily know exactly what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go. It could have been picking up peanuts in the ballpark or doing absolutely anything. Like I was like, yes, I'm there. I'll do it. He was like, oh, it's this position called stage manager. And he didn't even know what it would entail. He was like, yeah, just show up. You're going to work with like the director, the producer, more or less the real muscle that kind of coordinates it and gets it onto the television. So I show up at JetBlue South in Fort Myers. And, I basically, long story short, I end up walking into the broadcast booth and I'm slowly learning like, oh, okay, they're going to have me do X, Y, and Z, and obviously sit next to OB. And at the time it was Remy and Eck was down there. And I think Steve Lyons did a few games in spring training way back in the day. So I quickly was, as growing up Red Sox fan, just like enamored with the opportunity, just with the ability to be, like you said, that close to the guys, really just sit there like a fly on the wall, chop it up with them, talk baseball, and I'm not someone who played it collegiately or even at the high school level. To be honest with you, I've just been a fan my entire life. So it is beyond, unimaginable. And I try not to take it for granted and things like that. But that's really how I got into it back in, I would say, 2017. And ever since then, I really just tried to. I knew once I worked my first few games, I was like, yeah, I'm not. They're going to have to drag me out of this booth. Like, I'm not going to leave. And, I'm going to try and do this as much as I possibly can, as, many times as they'll give me the opportunity to do so. Specifically, just to touch on, like, what it actually is, a stage manager, really what I do is facilitate all the advertisements, mainly that you see throughout the game. So whether it's nowadays, we're looking at Uke and OB, obviously, Lou is in there, Will is in there and things like that, but just making sure they have the proper ad that they're reading throughout the game. Obviously OB is, or whoever's Mike Monaco, whoever's really calling the game is going to go through 60 different ads that you'll see throughout the game. So it's kind of funny and interesting as growing up watching sports. You don't really realize all the things that go into just putting the score on the screen or moving something around on the screen. It really takes 20 different people, putting it together and putting it on the air. I'm physically the person who sits up there with them, like you said, kind of make sure they're good to go, gets them whatever they need. But I would say, a majority of my duties detail the advertisements and just making sure they're kind of facilitated properly. But it's hard not to say especially at Fenway, you get to sit up there and on Sun games when it's a 2-man booth, I get to sit up there, right above home plate. And I like to say, I kind of see balls and strikes better than anybody. And it's really incredible just to sit up there. And I really don't try and take any game for granted. And, I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit as we discuss, but it's definitely a lot of fun. And a great opportunity that I've been able to kind of continue on.
You mentioned you started there in 2017. Something magical happened. I don't know if you knew in 2018, but something magical kind of happened up there in Boston in 2018.
Yeah.
What was the atmosphere like up there as you're seeing this progress from the first game of the season? When we lose, everybody's trying to out AC to the run that we went, 108.
It is pretty interesting. And I will say I wasn't up here full time until the 2018 season. So in 2017, I got to see them in spring training going into that transition. But I'll say the biggest thing that happens with the crew when it goes into, like, for instance, when they went on that run, they win all those games, they go into the postseason, one of the best Red Sox teams ever. The biggest thing that I got coming back and seeing them the next year, and then 2018 is when I actually relocated and moved from Fort Myers up to Boston. And I got to ask them about like how last year was, how the run was. And the first thing OB said to me was, they don't get to do, obviously you guys know this, living up here, Nesson doesn't have all the rights to the broadcast when the playoffs are rolling. So it's essentially like having their arm cut off. And that team specifically, he couldn't describe it any better. It's just being like, to go that whole year with the team on the run, you're through the ups and downs. And then the year prior, obviously, like you were noting, the things with Cora, it was just, it was pretty wild. So it's always, even in 2021, like the same kind of thing happened. We go to the playoffs. Yeah. There was a lot of magic in the air. At one point, we're looking at, are we about to win a World Series? So it from the standpoint of, the broadcast not being able to stay with the team, it's always, kind of a heartbreaker. And that was the first thing that was kind of iterated to me stepping into the 2018 season, kind of more of a full-time role. But yeah, it was definitely a little special.
George?
No, so when you started in 2018, you're doing it a little bit more on a full-time basis. Describe, like your well, even back in 17, but when you were first doing it like on a live game and not at Fenway South.
Yeah,
just like I'm sure the butterflies were going off, on steroids.
They were. You're exactly right, George. And it's like as soon as I got up here and was actually able to step in the booth at Fenway, with especially like the first thing I think of is just thinking back to Jerry. And now I got to work with Jerry in Fort Myers a little bit as well, but it's just crazy to be able to share the booth with those guys in that environment. So now, obviously I'm very comfortable up there. It's a lot different than when I first walked in, but I mean, as far as the butterflies, it was something, to a similar feeling to where I first got the job. Like they're going to have to pull me out of this booth. Like I'm going to be 60 years old up here doing this before they're like, can you please move on, sir? So, it's, there was a lot of that, I think. But there still is, like, even to this day, folks obviously change. We've got new guys coming in and you make new relationships with kind of the new players and things like that. But more so like obviously the talent and, guys that are calling the games that are up in the booth. I have the, kind of the more so the most relationship with, just being so that I work with them so closely on a majority of the home games. But it was definitely really special. But I will say like the biggest thing is it never stops getting special. It's continuously, it's just every single game. Obviously the end of this year is a little bittersweet. It's like, we're up there, we're doing games. It's raining every day. You're sitting through delays. The team's not any good. And, a lot of the, we're kind of like, can the season end? And then the season ends and you start missing it a lot. So, it's definitely a lot of feelings. But yeah, as far as just getting up there, I think back to just like Jerry, obviously being up there, being down on the field for Mookie's Gold Glove. There was a few Silver Sluggers in there with JD. That was a moment I'll never forget, kind of just looking around like, dude, what am I doing? Where am I at? Sort of thing. But again, I still think that honestly every single day and try and take advantage of it. But it was definitely heightened because I was a little bit younger. Definitely, I had traditionally grown up in Fort Myers. I was, I had visited Boston. My dad was originally from Boston. So my brother lived up here, I had roots up here, but it was all so surreal and Fenway was so surreal. So getting to be up there, let alone just being at Fenway was like, eyes wide open. So, it was really special, but it's always very special even to this day.
You brought up, Remy. You brought up Eck. I kind of want to bring up Wakefield also. His passing this past week was, that didn't just hurt, the fans. It didn't just hurt, the Red Sox. That hurt the whole city of Boston because Wakefield did so much that we never seen. for the city of Boston, for, the children's hospitals, for, anybody really, when I'm sitting there, I read stories all the time. George just wrote an amazing article. I'm not sure if he put it out there yet. I got a privilege to read it early. But just everything I heard was when Wake put on that uniform, that Red Sox uniform, number 49, it was pure class.
Yeah.
Wearing that. What are your thoughts? You have any memories of interactions with him? And, just what did he mean that you've seen to not only the organization, but the city of Boston?
Yeah. No, I definitely have. I mean, first off, it's one of the most more tragic kind of sudden things. Definitely still, like you guys, I'm sure, grieving with it. It's one of those things that I feel like everyone's always together when things like this happen, but just Wake being who he was, where he was in his life, it's extra tragic. It was just, it's unbearable. So it's been pretty tough. I was very blessed to just be around Wake, I would say, a good amount of times throughout this past year, just working with him back in July through the athletic series. So he was exactly how everyone has been depicting him throughout this entire past few days. I think when I hear everybody talk about him and when I watch him as a kid, growing up, I think of my dad, I think of my brother, just because he was always out there on the mound. And people reaching out saying like, sorry for your loss. And cause I worked with him, whatever. It's like, obviously this has been reiterated, but it's just not, it's sorry for everyone's loss. And it's just been insanely tragic. But, I'd have friends reach out to me and from the Boston area saying, I just have so many memories going to the ballpark with their fathers watching Wake pitch.
Mm-hmm.
He was just always out there. The most Red Sox starts, all the stats and everything, that's been going around recirculating. You've seen it all. That it's insane. He is that person. He always was that person in the booth. He was great though. I mean, he always came in this year, looking good, looking great, discussing golf. I think I really went a little bit further in his book. He started looking at me a little bit differently when I started name dropping a few courses down in the Fort Myers and the Naples area, because he's just such a big golf guy. He was always into that. But just a class act guy, I couldn't reiterate more. Everything you've heard about him, this, over his entire career since the Red Sox Nation has embraced him is so true. I mean, the Red Sox Foundation, the folks that he knew over there, Rebecca Solwasser, their director, for so to speak, that kind of runs that organization. He was such a big proponent of hers. Whenever we did the ceremonies down on the field throughout the game, not necessarily the Jimmy Fund telethon games, but there was times throughout the year where he's just such a champion for that and such a philanthropist for the city. He's done so much, and it's just crazy. So I think it'll be a long time before everybody is able to grieve it. And to be honest, like I wasn't the last home game at Fenway happened. I said goodbyes to everybody that was there. OB and Uke, and then Lou a little bit, who was there the last few series. And then obviously the terrible news came out right as they took off and headed for Baltimore. So I haven't seen anybody from NESN personally. I've obviously reached out and been in communication with a good, few different folks and things like that. But to just have like the timing, how it all happened and the season ending and the way it all happened, I don't really want to, get into all that about those last like kind of few days. But yeah, it's just also surreal. And then Sunday when the news broke, it was just, still just shock. It's still just, numb, and I think you saw that in like a lot of the players and a lot of the sentiment that have been reiterated from TC and from Nesson people, Red Sox folks, you name it, fans, everybody, you know, I mean, but my experiences with him were exactly like you would think and you've heard. Just super nice, like probably the most approachable guy when it comes to like former player. And just like where his stature was, who he was. I think when I first met him down in Fort Myers, you know, younger kid, I'll say, I was like, shook his hand. Hey, Mr. Wakefield, like completely tried to be as formal as possible. He was like, please don't call me Mr. Wakefield. Call me Tim. I never called him Tim. I called him Wake ever, you know, obviously after that. Since then, but he was just, you know, very about his business, came in, was always ready to go, but was very loose and like, you know, very just arms wide open kind of guy. Very, very warm. So yeah, very tragic.
Yeah, George, you wrote a great article. I'd love to sit there and have you touch base on what you wrote, because, you know, I think that, you know, we need to talk. You know, some people, you know, get over things and deal with things differently. I like to get things and talk about, you know, positive stuff that they did. And, you know, but if we went and stayed and talked about every positive thing that Wake did, I would be on this podcast probably till opening day. You know what I mean? Because he is just went above and beyond any time he could. But George, I'd love to sit there and hear some of your article.
Yeah, I mean, the real basis behind it was all the things you said, Ryan, about him being a really good guy. There was the player we knew on the field. You know, and I think in the opening paragraph I said something about the man who experienced incredible highs in his career and then equally humbling lows. When you think about how he must have felt at the end of the 2003 when he gave up the walk-off to Boone, right? I cannot imagine what that feels like as a professional ball player. Okay, yet he comes out. Francona gives him the start the next year. He gives up his spot so that, you know, they don't have to blow through the bullpen and they come back with the miracle comeback. All those things are great. You know, he gets mentioned. Most games pitched, wins, innings pitched. You know, and he's talked about him with the likes of Pedro Martinez, Roger Clemens, and Cy Young. That's some pretty heady stuff right there.
Yes.
And I'm sure he felt great about all of that. But I think he was more in his element when he could be Tim Wakefield, the person. And, you know, I started hearing, like, I think he'd been around for 4 or 5 years, and I started hearing stories about he very quietly would go over to the children's hospital and talk to the kids, and made a lot of friends over there because of the way he did it. He didn't do it for photo op. He did it because he cared. And those things are really important. And, you know, there are too many stories about professional athletes that don't do stuff like that, or they do it for the wrong reason. You know, that, hey, look, see, I'm not great, I'm doing all this stuff. He was never like that. And he did it hundreds of times. And countless kids. And there are countless young people out there today that got a chance to meet him and are probably more devastated by it than we are, because he was a professional athlete that took time to really care about them. Not as somebody they could sit with, but as, you know, just a person, and have a big league ball player in that corner.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that really set him apart. I think that's the thing that probably endeared him as more stories came out to the public. And he was such a quiet, his personal life in respect to keeping that aside. I think and I think what transpired at the end was really sad. And at the end of my piece, I kind of took that to heart, and I'm not going to rehash it here, but it's basically saying that it's what happened to him at the end is something he didn't deserve or need.
Oh, 100%.
With respect to how that all came out.
Yeah.
And Boston's a great place, is a better place for having him. There's a big hole there. My only regret is I never got a chance to meet the man. And he's one of those people that great ball player, but an even better person. And you know what? At the end of the day, that's about as good as you can get.
You couldn't have said it better. He did things just the right way, just he was very special. But I think back to what Cora did, making them all wear their jersey, not making them, having the team wear their jerseys in the dugout. It really epitomized who he was and the pride he took in being a Red Sox. I look back to like the reactions from David Ortiz, from Pedro Martinez, just like you can feel from Yuke's emotion, on the broadcast, having to go through that.
Yeah, they held it together. I mean,
and it resonates with you just to show, who he was and what he did. But, you're totally right. He always did it the right way, but he was very simple, and he was very just, obviously he liked his privacy. He had his family and all the things that he loved and things like that. So, yeah, I mean, it's something that I don't know if the city will ever get past, the way everything went down with Schilling and just those last few days. I think I try and latch on to how he did appreciate it. It came out, through other folks that were, obviously a lot closer to him at NESN, and that he appreciated it. And I think it was, it meant a lot to him to have people thinking about him, praying for him in those last few days. But yeah, it's something that the city until next, and it hasn't even hit in. I feel like obviously I've done some grieving on my own. You watch the videos. I sit here for an hour or so the other morning, just blowing off, things I need to do, just kind of scrolling through, social media and just all the things between the team and NESN's posting. You just kind of sit there and reminisce for a little bit. Mm-hmm. But I don't think it'll really hit all of us until we get back to Fenway next year. And, obviously there's talks of the name change of Jersey Street, and there's talks of how we're going to honor him and all that and whatever. Right. But it's just, I don't think we'll all really get there until next year when we're able to kind of come together personally. Because again, just the season ending, and it was almost like I said this to a few friends, just sitting and watching the game as we're just at my house Sunday, football, and then we're just planning to turn the Sox on like another Sunday, and obviously the news broke, and it almost just felt like on the last day of the regular season, all the teams going off at 3, kind of his kiss goodbye, in a way, like in a beautiful way to the game of baseball. And then you have Kirby going out there, obviously figuring it out after he was throwing the knuckleball for him. It was, I think we were able to get some, I don't know, solace in the way he passed. It's just terrible. There's nothing that we can kind of get from that. But I know, getting off on a little bit of a tangent, but I know he was definitely just one of a kind human being that I don't think we'll be able to really overcome for
sure.
A long time.
Yeah, there's numerous, like the video that hit me and hurt me the most was when they were talking to the Veritech.
Yeah.
Like that video there was like, dude, like that's when I was like, man, really? Like,
yeah.
So, but there's a lot of rumors going around of possible things. You mentioned a lot of them, Ryan. Possibly even retiring of the jersey. A lot of people are like, does he deserve it?
Yes.
Give me a reason why he doesn't deserve it.
Yeah, 100%. No, I mean, I'm on the side of he deserves it for sure. I mean, all we've talked about this past half hour, it's not the whole half hour, but it's what he did on the field, off the field, his story, what he meant to the city, everything, just everything. It's needless to say, but I'm very intrigued. I think the Red Sox most of the time, do the right thing in this scenario, and kind of just feels like we went through this with Jerry. I think that was within a lot of the NESN folks, like live and not live, and just in the past few days. So just from fans. But yeah, it's it'll definitely be a lot different moving into next year. You know, he didn't do a ton of games, but every time he did work, it was a 3-man booth. You know, I think back to some of his games this year with Uke, some of my better memories, and just, you know, I would even say some of their better nights of the year. They had a few nights together where they were really just flowing, you know, talking hitting, talking pitching, matchups, thinking on the mound versus batters, you know, them just bouncing back off each other, and Obi kind of just sitting there. And it was nothing like too specific, but it was definitely one of those times where I just kind of took the moment and was like, man, that was pretty damn cool. Like, that was just pretty damn cool. You know, Tim Wakefield, Kevin Youkilis, just legends of the game, just chalking it up. So, but it'll be interesting to see how they move forward for sure.
Yeah, I'm definitely all for, and I kind of hope that the one rumor will be excellent. 4-9 on April 9th, you know, Tim Wakefield Day.
Yeah.
Technically, that should be 4-9 every year, you know, Wake Day.
I agree.
Right.
So,
I agree.
to sit there and go from, you know, trying to pick this back up a little bit, we have a new, pretty much a cast of rotating guys in the booth. One guy that I love in the booth, because you never know what he's gonna say. You gotta give me your best Papelbon story. That man is pure fire. He followed the podcast back, and ever since that, I'm like, gotta get you on. We had Keith Folk on.
He's the man.
We gotta get you on, Pap. We gotta get you on.
He is the man. I will say, I haven't spent a ton of time with Pap, mostly because he works the pre and the post game shows. When I'm out in behind home plate or up above home plate, it's hard for me to get out there. There's a separate individual kind of man in that booth. But I will say, probably the funniest memory of Pap, just him showing up, always trying to get into some sort of craps, gambling with the guys during the game, watching the game, the way he watches the game. You know, again, nothing really specific, but I will just say the energy he would bring to the post-game show. You know, I liked a lot of things he said this year, as far as, like you said, you never, ever know what he's going to say. But I liked a lot of things he said this year when the team was down. And I think in the post-game show, they need that. They need, obviously, energy in the pre-game show. But I like a lot of the new guys that they've been bringing in. You know, I wish they would kind of get him over onto the, actual broadcast, maybe switch that up a bit. But I think where he's at is great. I wish personally I got to spend a little bit more time with him. But yeah, him bringing in, I think, like a full craps set or casino set, you know, it might have been a whole bit. I'm not here to say whether it was legitimate or not, but just what he does to entertain us and the little peek-ins that we'll kind of go throughout the game. He's one of a kind, but he's definitely been cool as far as, some of the new guys that they've been bringing in the past few years, and especially this year.
Yeah. When I heard that, you know, he was going to be part of the team, I was all intrigued, because I'm like, the energy he brought to Fenway,
I know,
when he would come in, shipping up the Boston hits, and all of a sudden he's out there pure fire and electricity.
Yeah,
I'm like, man, I can't wait, because, you know, his personality is above and beyond what you need. But that's great, because you can put him with anybody and the energy in the room just goes, you know, up tremendously.
100%. Whether it was Letty, Darnell, Jim Rice, obviously they were mixing it up, and I think they thought that too. He's just incredible. When I think back, he was someone when I was growing up. I mean, in terms of all the guys, you know, at Nesson, he's someone when I was growing up, like, definitely one of my favorite personal guys. And the way he came out and threw the opening pitch, I think it was in the wild card game against the Yankees in 21, just straight fastball down the middle. I mean, that's the attitude he brings to the pre and post game show at Nesson. Like, you know, it doesn't matter if it's a rain delay, what it is, the game, the situation, the score. that is the guy. He is just, is the typical, like, doesn't need any coffee, just wired differently. So I think more of my time personally has been spent with guys like Will Middlebrooks. Lou Merloni's been in the booth a lot this year. He's been so fantastic. I mean, all the guys are. Kevin Youkilis I've gotten, pretty close to throughout the year, but I'd like to see Pat bounce out and kind of make, maybe help out on a full game next year, something like that. But all the guys obviously they have on staff are pretty well up to speed.
Oh man, could you imagine Pap for a Yankee series?
It'd be electric.
Oh man,
I know.
Well, but then again, these Yankees series aren't what they used to be. That dog just lays down now. The Yankees officially, after this season, they pretty much know, just lay down, take our beatings. Garrett Cole. I'm surprised Garrett Cole, when he goes and pitches to Devers, he just doesn't turn around and just throw it over the wall himself.
I know.
Because it just gets so ridiculous with Devers nowadays.
I know. Well, the last series of the year, a few weeks ago, was you talk about how far Yankees Sox have fallen. It was a joke when we were walking around the stadium pregame, because not a lot of people were there. The weather was terrible. I have see if I remember the days, but it was recently within the past schedule.
Those are the two doubleheaders separated by a day. Yeah.
The September series, 11th, 12th, and 13th. And, here we are battling for 4th and 5th, and people are like, this is not Yankees Red Sox in terms of what we're used to. So, I think that's going to change. Obviously, there's a lot of changes coming for the Red Sox. I hope as a fan, we obviously move in the right direction, but time will tell. But yeah, that series specifically, the only thing that was the same was, I think it was a 3.5 hour game, but the game was terrible. I couldn't tell you if we won or lost. Everyone was just in a bad mood because, obviously just the season and no one was there. So I think it's definitely where are we going to go as far as next year with this rivalry? The schedule change has a little bit to do with it. But yeah, I'm interested to see, especially what they do, on their end. There's a lot of question marks over there. So
let's sit there. I'm kind of curious. One guy that's in the free agent market, we're linked to a lot now. Shohei Ohtani. And it seems like we're getting talks more and more. What was it? They sold part of their soccer team, for $200 million or whatever.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, people are like, oh, they're going all in on Ohtani. Ohtani and the Angels were at Fenway Park this year, and I've seen videos upon videos of the amount of fans trying to get a glimpse of him.
Oh, dude.
What was that like when Ohtani was there, and how would he fit in here in the city of Boston?
It was insane. He would fit in here to like a glove. I think back to one of the coolest things. I think it was so painful at the time. It was 2021. They were coming. They had a weekend series here. I think we had won the first two games. This was just sweet. This was the third game. Matt Barnes was in. It was bottom of the ninth. We were winning the whole game. Should have won the game, no problem. And Shohei flicked a ball around the pesky pole down the right field line. And it was just wild. Obviously I was crushed because wanted the Red Sox to win. There was a lot of momentum tied into that series. I think even after that, we had gone on to lose a few, kind of throughout the summer there. But he's special. I mean, every time he comes to Fenway, it's special. This past year, obviously, the pictures you're referencing, the people that were surrounding the team bus as they were leaving the stadium is serious. It's as serious and real as it seems online. I think there's definitely, as far as him fitting here, I mean, positionally, you could go a lot of different ways with, like, does he fit? I don't know. I'm not a GM nor a baseball savant like that. But, like, culturally, yes. There's a few guys. Masa is already obviously here. There's another guy in Japan that we're trying to target that is a good friend of his as well. I don't think we'll obtain all three of those guys, but it's, I think when he comes here, I personally, this is just my opinion, I think he enjoys it. I try and follow him on social media. He seems to take a liking to Boston, or at least point out the fact that he's here when he is here. We'll say that. What they'll do, we'll see. But, man, he would mash. He would mash here. He's Shohei Ohtani. He mashes everywhere. But especially here, I think he'd look great in the uniform. And, I think he would be really good. And I've seen him personally be really good when it comes to home runs. I think this past year he hit a home run, but the reason I remember 2021, because it was such a backbreaker. Angels it was a tie game. They ended up winning the game. And it was just a classic, like, I cannot believe he just hit that out type of home run. So, yeah, I'd love him here. He's definitely just entertainment. I think when he pitched against Bayo, it was a Marathon Monday this year, dropped everything I was doing, put a hold on my entire life to go down there. Now, it ended up being a little bit lackluster. There was rain, like there was a lot this year. And they both, Shohei was pulled after 2 because the mound was all dirty. Bayo only went a few innings. It was kind of gross baseball. So didn't turn out to be great, but the people all turn out to see him whenever he comes here. I think it was, it was marketed insanely, leading up into that, obviously being a Marathon Monday and all that stuff. So he needs, I'm definitely, as far as a baseball fan, in the camp of, like, let's get him out of Los Angeles. Will he come to the East? I don't know. I think for sure we are up there. I think you're seeing that with the Heyman thing that comes out today. Red Sox are going to be there. Let's see it. I'd love to, some of the talent, some of the guys in the booth feel otherwise, some of the, old former players, and they have their reasons. They're a lot smarter than me. I don't know. I'm a fan. Obviously, I want to see him. I think it makes a big difference him not pitching next year. But with where we're at, I'm not holding anything out of consideration. And I do think, like, this is a place where he likes. People point to the New Balance thing. I wouldn't put a lot of coin into that. I think that, like, the New Balance CEO, obviously, he has a big partnership with New Balance, and he's all, kind of buddy with them. So people were pointing to that as maybe a point of why he would come here, blah, blah, blah. But I think really, as far as the culture, the people, how we, just the baseball fans in general, the waves of people that show up just to see him in an Angels jersey. Yeah, he'd fit right in here. He'd fit like a glove. He'd mash. Definitely want him. And, but want a lot of guys, honestly, this offseason. So we'll see, right?
Yeah. One of my fondest memories of, and it still baffles me today, when I went to Fenway, I have 2 memories in my mind. I always talk to DC about them. Number one, and they both were on my birthday, May 14th. One was David Ortiz. We're in the bottom of the 11th. He hits his walk-off double, and he becomes like I think he's the 4th or 5th player to have how many 400 home runs, 500 doubles, something like that.
Yep.
Crazy. And then the other one that baffles me was Rockies Red Sox. Chris Sale's on the mound. I'm sitting right behind. You already know what I'm talking about. I'm sitting all behind the bullpen, watching Chris, warm up. He's got a whole, different demeanor to him. 17.
Yep.
Lose.
17 of those.
Because Workman gives up a home run when he comes in. And then go to find out, Brandon Workman gave up the only home run all year was that one.
Yep.
I was like, how?
Yep. How? That's kind of how he was for that year for a while. I felt like he was throwing 17 strikes every game, and we were putting up 0 runs for for that entire year. Yeah, it's definitely one that I'll remember as well.
George?
Yeah, on the Ohtani thing, as a fan, I'd like to see it. I'm not a GM either, and I don't play one on television.
We played him a couple of times, George.
We have. That's true. Yes, we have. I don't think it makes a lot of sense unless they start moving other parts around.
Yeah.
Because he's going to be a one-way player this year, and then I still question how long he can go on doing both.
Yep.
And if he has to give up pitching to get the most out of him, they're going to have to either put him at first base or something, because he just can't. You got to keep his bat in the lineup because you got to keep his bat in the lineup.
Yeah.
It's one of those things you can dream about. Perception and reality are two different things. So we'll figure. Something will happen, and everybody will be surprised, I'm sure.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, I had a question. When you're behind the scenes and you're making sure that everything, runs smoothly, you ever have one of those situations where all of a sudden you're supposed to have something at your disposal, it's not,
Yeah.
and you're like, gee boys, now what do I do?
Yeah, a few different times. You're telling me you've never seen us do a Chevy ad and it wasn't Chevy before? No, because
you're not the guy throwing you're not you're the guy throwing the copy out there, right?
That is correct. Well, so there, to answer your question, there has been a few times for sure, where essentially the producer and the director, they're in the truck, and the producer and the Elements producer are working with me directly through a headset. So, hey, they have to mix these advertisements into the game. And a lot of the advertisements are dialed into a play, to a player, to a stolen base, to a home run. So you kind of got to stay on your toes with some of that stuff. We'd like to do a lot of it off of a foul ball. Can be on your toes. Mm-hmm. But there's definitely been a few times where we were going to do, like, for literal example, the Chevy high strength steel play. And I think I handed OB a Toyota read. So he starts reading Toyota and Chevy's on the screen. So yeah, it's one of those things where it's like the job is specific, it's straightforward. It's not rocket science, but if you do mess up, thousands of people will see. Now, obviously it's not the end of the world. We're not perfect. I'd like to say this year I pitched a perfect game. I think every outing. So there was no mistakes on my watch, or anything like that. Sorry, as I just make sure we're plugged in here. But it's definitely something that happened a few times, and then OB will look at me like, hey bud, you handed me the wrong piece of paper. There's times where a lot of the times, like, guys will just bury ads like in their notes, all the stuff. So got to keep an eye on that. There's times where OB, like, we'll go to the promo and, I'll give him the promo. I'll tell our producer he's ready to go. So but then we'll sit on it. Sometimes we'll sit on it for like 5 minutes or even longer than that. They'll get into conversation. Maybe there's a super long inning. And then all of a sudden they'll be like, all right, Dave, promo. And he hears that in his headset and he looks down and there's nothing there. So that's happened a few times, to where you kind of got to act fast. Nothing to where it's been like, holy cow, that was a problem. Other than, I would say, just the one that sticks in my brain is like the Chevy high strength steel play. So whenever we do that now, I'm always like, this freaking thing, like this thing is the bane of my existence. Really, other than that, I don't think there's been any other, so now we use an iPad for a lot of what Dave reads because he'll read so much. You won't realize it, but especially in the opening of the game, from the lineup, like, here's the lineup, here are the umpires, the game's brought to you by SAP, now there's Spanish, here's the weather, like, all that stuff is on paper. And then after that, there's a whole iPad of stuff. So sometimes the iPad will go corrupt, and then all of a sudden he's looking at me. We're going to do a promo and the iPad's turned off. So the other day I had to turn it on real quick, get it all dialed for him. God knows the password, but that's neither here nor there. But it's super funny, and we were able to get it done. It's always a quick save. They're always like, "You're the man," on a hop, as we always like to say, obviously in the industry. But nothing too crazy, thankfully. But those few times where it did happen, it was always in the Watertown studios during COVID when no one was at Fenway. We were doing games in a closet. It felt like, it was me, OB, and Eck, literally in a closet. It was a nice closet. Obviously they made it into a studio, but it was at first when they moved us in there, it was like a literal, like someone's old office. Made it fabulous. It became state of the art. We had it all proofed and there was lights and all this stuff, but it felt weird, obviously, coming from, working at Fenway. You're like, all right, we're just here. Even for them, it's hard to call the game. They're miles away in Toronto, whatever. We're sitting there watching it on monitors, trying to call it. So it was a little hard. And those were the times where I felt like we always got caught slipping a little bit. And then I'm, beating myself up because, I want it to be a well-run broadcast. I want us to, hit the right stuff. And it's good to do so. One of the funnier things in spring training, they used to have us, a big thing, a part of the job at spring training is calling out all the players who change throughout the game. And as you can imagine, in spring training, they'll bring a whole freaking lineup in there in the fourth inning. And, so there was time starting out in the position when I'm working up here during the regular season. Obviously you don't have to deal with that, but there was times in spring training where it was like, Dave, so-and-so is coming in. This person's coming in. Now the positions evolve to where we do that. Like the producer, like our truck helps a lot with that now, to where they'll just put it on the screen for him. He'll essentially just go through it. Whereas years back, it was kind of just like hand done. And I would just be scribbling notes. So-and-so's coming in. Ryan Weber's coming in. And one time, I swear to you, and I laugh about it every day with him. One time I wrote on a piece of paper, you'll probably remember this guy. You guys are big prospect guys. I wrote Eduardo Bizzardo on a piece of paper. The guy's name is Edward Bizzardo. So he called him Eduardo Bizzardo. Thankfully, this was a spring training game, and everybody thought it was hilarious just because Eduardo Bizzardo is a fantastic name. Probably should have been his name. But, I'll just never forget it because afterwards I was like, OB, I think I handed you a piece of paper that said Eduardo Bizzardo. Definitely not his name. So it's something that I always laugh about and think back about, but that's one that sticks in my brain just as like mess ups or funny things that have happened. So now I don't think he's with the organization anymore. Correct me if I'm wrong, but no. I think he was like last year, and his name would come up and I'd be like, OB, Eduardo Bizzardo. We just have a good laugh about it. But that was always hectic. You get the old binoculars going. In spring training, guys, they're wearing different numbers. They're, not the PR guys, but the different internal guys for the other teams, have to get the media guys, have to get the names out to us prior to the game. There's all different sorts of stuff you're kind of working with. That's why those games are such a, and I want to say crapshoot, but they're a literal crapshoot. But yeah, those were always insane. Trying to just balance that, but it's a lot smoother now. It's a lot, easier for lack thereof, but and a lot more help. It's especially in the regular season, you just don't have that many changes.
Excellent. So now that the season's over, and what are you doing in place of doing baseball games?
Yeah, great question. I am actually working with Jack and Brick. So over on the Bruins broadcast. So, I'm not sure how big of Bruins fans you guys are, but recently, this is just starting this year, switching over to doing that transition throughout the wintertime. A lot of the times I'd work, Hockey East games, other things throughout Nesson, college things. But now making the, kind of somewhat full-time or really part-time transition to working with Jack and Brick over on the broadcast, which has been fantastic. Just had a few preseason games this past week at the Garden. Were a lot of fun, a lot of energy there. It's a lot different. I worked 6 years in baseball with the Red Sox. The Red Sox are my team. They're, I love all Boston sports, but the Red Sox are my team. And being in a booth that's not OB and, Uke and Eck or Remy, Wake, all of them, Will, being in a booth with not baseball guys is definitely a little different. But as far as, how Jack and Brick have been personally, they've been awesome. It's a little bit more, I would say, formal up there. It's kind of business. Baseball guys are, just do this, do that, hand me this whenever, super, everybody's low maintenance, but, hockey, being on the hockey broadcast, it can be, you want to come a little bit more, ready to go and things like that. So, but yeah, that's been, it'll be exciting this year. So I'll be working kind of about 50% of the home games, same kind of thing that I have going over at Fenway with the Red Sox, but with the Bruins. So doing the same exact thing, making sure the guys are dialed, facilitating all the different ads that we read over, on NESN throughout the game. And then obviously a lot of it, as you guys probably know, are the same types of ads and things like that. But that is what I'll be doing as far as season's ending. Time on my hands now again, without the Red Sox, moving over to the Bruins. So I'll be helping out with them on the broadcast there.
Well, Ryan, I want to sit there and talk about how you and I got connected. There was a certain person in the booth that George and I are huge fans of.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Roman Anthony was in the booth. Dude. And I seen it, of course, I got to throw out there the Roman Empire shirt.
And, I know, those are sweet.
And next thing you know, you comment, I comment, we're in DMs, we're exchanging numbers, and here you are.
Yeah.
But when you commented, you sit there and were like, yo, this dude's legitimate. Talk a little bit about Roman Anthony, how this 19-year-old kid is mature at such a young age and handles himself so well in a high-profile Red Sox organization.
Dude, it's crazy. It blew me away. It made me feel insane. The kid's such a stud. I think he's 19?
19.
Came in the booth, ready to go. Just you could just feel the way he was approaching it, taking it seriously. He was super thoughtful, very well spoken for such a young kid. I think everybody knows like the talent he has on the field, but yeah, his maturity level is off the freaking charts. The first thing that Uke said when they popped off the headphones, we get done with the interview, pop off the headphones. Hey man, great meeting you. Good luck, all that stuff. That's generally what they'll usually get. As soon as he walks out, Uke and Obi were both like, that dude is different. Like you could just tell, even the people in the truck could tell that weren't even in the booth. Like it was a great interview. Obviously there's tons of success like coming his way. I think he's a great kid. I think it's insane that he's a kid. But he's got so much talent. I'm excited to see what's next for him. I think when he was walking out of the booth, I told him, we'll see you when you get up here. Cause that time will come. I definitely have a soft spot for him because before I grew up in Fort Myers, Florida, which is kind of the west coast of Florida, I spent a little bit of time on the East Coast in Parkland, in an area called Coral Springs, which is actually where Roman isn't from, but he went to Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, which was in that area. Anthony Rizzo went there. He kind of talked about that a little bit on the broadcast, big baseball school down in Florida. But so kind of familiar with his neck of the woods, if you will. So I just going into it, I was already like, oh, dude, I love this kid. I love what he had obviously on the field, just not even talking about him as a person and where he's from, but just what he brings to the table as far as his maturity level. I think where this organization is built well for him. He's excited to play up in Fenway. sky's the limit for him. So yeah, I mean the raves couldn't be more raves about him as far as just the way he handled it, how cool he was. Even chopped it up with him a little bit through social media as well. With that, after that, the kids dialed into, it seems, the organization, and excited to be up here. So it's great. I think even listening back to the last podcast with CT, and you guys had just a few other minor leaguers on here. It's great to be around them, and a guy like him. I mean, it's not being around the bush, one of the better prospects in the organization. It's like, all right, I see what they see in him. I'm happy about it. This kid is for real. He's legit. And yeah, all the pros thought so as well. So it was like, all right, done deal. Like, this is easy. So that's kind of my 2 cents on him.
Yeah. And, we've got a plethora of talent down there. Kyle Teal is another huge guy that's just moving so quickly up there. Quick thing, when our show intro was going on, I glanced down because I could see the, you in the green room in the back, and you were just like, you were enjoying it.
I was.
I told DC, I told George before, my goal is at the end of that, because I'm a huge fan of I was a huge fan of Section 10.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of ITM podcast and with Steve and them.
Yep.
My goal is to get TC to be like and here are your hosts, the Ritt, and that's my goal, because you can't get much better, when you're talking about home runs.
Yeah.
Off the pesky pole, over the pesky pole, we're the Pesky Podcast. Can't get no better than TC, saying that.
Dude,
so
no.
that is.
I'll try and put that in the works for you. TC is all class, the exact guy you see on the television screen every single night. He actually gave me shit. Sorry, I don't know if I'm I swear on this podcast, but he gave me some stuff for asking Wake for a photo. So at the time he was like, "Oh, you only ask ball players for photos." No. Like in TC, so he was like, "Oh, I don't get asked for a photo or anything like that." But yeah, why I was bobbing and shaking my head is because I'm such a big OB guy. Mm-hmm. And I know a lot of people have their different opinions on OB, and they rightfully can, and have those opinions. They're entitled to those. I personally love OB. I think he's such a great guy. He's been nothing but class to me. But yeah, I just love hearing his voice and hearing him call home runs. So that's why I was just really kind of getting into it. TC is a great guy. Hey,
I would take either or. To be a part, to be the intro. ITM has Brock Holt, which he's another legend. Super utility man for the Red Sox for how many years, but his off the field stuff is, superb too. That's why I love the Red Sox organization, because we get to see them be great ball players, but 9 times out of 10, they're even a better human being and person off the field.
Yep.
You're wearing a great shirt right there, the Turner Trot.
Oh, yeah.
I'm so hoping, that Turner stays another year with us. George and I go way back before he was on the podcast, before he was a writer, where when JT took the liner to the space, and there he was 3 weeks back taking live batting practice, and DC and I were talking something different. It was almost like he threw some, got up, threw some dirt on it, and went right back to work. And George, he's like, listen to the latest podcast, loved it. That's got to be a shirt. So of course we made the throw some dirt on it, Turner Tough, t-shirts. But he's a great guy. He conveyed really quickly and became a part of the city really quick. Him, his wife, and everything. Any interactions with Turner at all? And when he got pulled at the last home game, the place will standing ovation for that guy. So
yeah, no interaction. I mean, a little bit of interactions with him. I was thankful enough to run the Turner Trot. I thought that was a lot of fun. Cross the finish line right as they were making this whole video, so it's kind of a whole awkward moment. But he's such a great guy. I never had any really personal interactions with him. No, but I mean, everyone is enamored with Justin Turner. He walks the walk. He's kind of exactly who he says he is, and everybody says he is, and the leader that the Dodgers says that he was in that organization, now leader in our organization. So no real interactions with him. I think when they took him out of the game and the standing O, I got on my feet. I think he kind of didn't know what to do, obviously, because he's not used to being taken out like that. They're gearing up for a postseason run, typically in his book. So definitely a little weird. Not a lot of folks there as far as just in terms of comparing it to a sellout crowd. But everybody that was there was on their feet, applauding JT. I hope he's back. I think a lot of people hope he's back. In terms of the DH position, there's a lot of question marks. If you do bring him back, there's more question marks as far as Yoshida or other guys, that you're trying to bring in from free agency. Obviously, there's certain stances on Rafi. Cora came out and said he's going to be the third baseman, obviously. So, and I'm behind that. But yeah, as far as I'd love to see him back here. He's just the best guy. I love supporting his event. The things that he spoke and the way he carried himself throughout the event. You could just see the type of person he is. Another philanthropist. I don't know what it is with Boston and philanthropy, but it's definitely it comes hand in hand. But yeah, he's a perfect fit for it. It's just funny how he was in LA and coming over here. I think everybody knew he'd be a perfect fit. Obviously people were, I wouldn't say thrilled just because of the whole Xander situation, but yeah, I think people unbiasedly knew he'd just be a great fit. So I wish I had some personal interaction with him. I hope next year he gets re-signed. So maybe I can. Most of it is just trying to get down there during BP, hang out in the dugout. But again, I try and not, really let the guys do their thing down there, especially if it's during BP. Just really be a fly on the wall, and that's what I love. Getting to see a few cool things were getting to see Massa and Rafi talk a little bit of hitting around the cage. Who knows what they're saying? Probably something about something in English, some broken English about hitting. But yeah, there was some cool stuff there. But yeah, I'm interested to see what they do with JT. He's a great guy. Couldn't be a bit more of a fan. Always kind of was a fan, especially in the Dodgers. It was weird because kind of hate the Dodgers, but him being there, you're always like, man, he is such a stud. Big moment kind of guy. Wish that moment was a little bit bigger for him as far as the ovation and all that stuff. Just more people involved. The weather was better. I think it was raining. The game we were out of it. So yeah, but interesting to see if he what will happen there with him.
Last question I'm going to ask, and it's going to be about a former Dodger.
Oh.
We're going to talk Alex Verdugo.
I was going to say, which one?
Oh, no. We're going to be positive, and we're going to talk Verdugo.
Okay.
What and the post game moment? You know which one I'm talking about.
Oh,
when he hits that walk off.
Yeah.
And of course he has no filter because he's in the moment, and he's like, please be fucking fair. What was your team's reaction to be like, whoa, we're on live television here, buddy. We can't take that back.
Everyone was floored. No one was it is Doogie, right? It's the one person you would expect. Such an iconic moment. honestly love him for that because he's genuine. Hate him or love him, he is who he is. He kind of marches to his own beat, which I respect. Obviously, there's things about him that can be better, but he was so hilarious that night. And everyone was kind of just like, oh, golly, like, what do we do now? Now, long story short, we come in the next day, and I'm like, so who's in trouble there? Like, whose head's on a stake there? And they were like, nothing happened. Like, I guess nowadays, as far as like the a lot of those regulations and like language rules and things like that, obviously they're still in place, but there was no like repercussion on Nesson or any like fines that I know of. I mean,
and there's so many open mics on games, particularly like football and basketball. You hear an awful lot. I think Poppy broke ground after after the marathon bomb.
Yes.
Scenario. Okay, he broke that ground, so Doogie was fairly safe. With that one.
100%. Boston's a place where you can let an F-bomb go for sure. Yeah. People are going to be even more jacked up like they were. I mean, that's why I think no one really got in trouble is because the moment was right. They won the game. It's Doogie. We're on Nesson. It's things happen, but and everybody loved it. Everybody was going crazy online. It was like, dude, the shirts, like, please be fucking fair. It's incredible. I hope it lives in more infamy. Like, I hope it kind of like resonates a little bit longer because you actually kind of brought that back up in my head. And I don't want to say I forgot about that moment, but definitely a big moment from the, kind of highlight reel, if you will, from this year. But yeah, everyone was kind of just like, oh my goodness. What was actually more crazy recently, because it's one thing if a player says something that they're not supposed to, but it's another thing if it's another thing if someone from Nesson does. So the other day, the other day, our producer thought that Lou had said fuck, but he was referring to Buck from the gentleman from the Old Timers game that they have. So
Steve Buckley, yeah.
Steve Buckley. So our producer's like, you just said fuck. You just said fuck. And he's like, when? Like, I don't think so. He's like, no, I said Buck. So that was actually a time where they freaked out internally because when it comes from them, it's like way, way different. Whereas, I think the whole Verdugo thing, they were just like, well, we can't really do anything about that. We're on somewhat of a delay, but that was live. Like, and especially those Jemai interviews, those are as live as it gets. So yeah, it was, but that happened just a few weeks ago. I come in and Lou's like, she thought I said fuck on the air. I was saying fuck for Steve Buckley. So shout out Steve Buckley. But yeah, that was, that got her more riled up than anything.
George, any last questions?
No, it's been a blast talking to you.
Yeah,
getting some backroom insight into the juggling of knives that you have to do on a nightly basis.
It's a lot of fun. It's honestly an honor. I appreciate you guys having me on the pod. It's an honor to do the position. As a Red Sox fan, I never try and take a day off. Like, I'm always going in there with such great attitude and appreciation for just being able to do what I do. So, just know that person up there is a devoted Red Sox fan, just like you guys. And yeah, I was more or less like, man, I got to follow up CT. I thought that interview was great. So wanted to definitely try and bring my A game, but I appreciate you guys having me on. It was
we got him in the t-shirt train as well.
Yes. Yeah, I know. I heard, and we're going to be in the mix for those as well. I'll have to be in touch with you guys about some of those.
Oh yeah. CT and I, George is the history buff. So I had the idea in my mind of what we wanted to go around. I called George 9 o'clock, 9:30 at night, something like that. Yeah. I'm like, George, this is my idea. Lay it out. He gave me 4 or 5 ideas. Got a hold of CT. He's like, I like this one and this one, either one. Yeah. I'm like, what? we'll release this one now. We'll release the next one, shortly after. I said, tell me what colors you want. I'm going to sit there and send them to you out in Arizona. Bada boom, bada bing. He's like, the only thing that surprised me, because I'm like, what size you wear? I'm thinking extra large. This dude's bigger than what I'm thinking, and I can't wait. He said 2X.
No.
Yeah.
I knew he was big. I knew he
barrel
was big.
chest. There you go.
Yeah, so I'm
insane.
like, man, because him and I, we got some things in the works, when he gets called to AAA, because I'm in Pennsylvania, but I get press passes for when they play the Rail Riders and stuff.
Yep.
So I got some things in the works when he come down here, and I'm picturing him this size, and then he goes 2X. So now it's like, wait, is this dude like JD Martinez size? Like, so
he's like Tristan Casas, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Oh, whoa. See? The me Casas, Esu Casas.
There we go. I know. After this, I'll browse the site a little bit. I even got to get the wheels turned and get with you on some designs, but we'll talk about that.
There you go.
Hey, but Ryan, the pleasure was all ours. We loved, getting some insight. Tell everybody where they can sit there and reach out to you. The floor is yours.
Yeah. I mean, really just on Twitter, not a huge socials guy, but I love Red Sox Twitter. I more just follow, a lot of the names that you'll see out there. But Ryan Anderson should just be the one to follow on both Twitter, the X, whatever you want to call it, Instagram. Stage manager, you should be able to find me that way. But anywhere else, that's really about it. Find me at Fenway. If anybody sees me down on the field, come say what's up, or walking around, things like that. Obviously, I'm kind of more of a behind the scenes guy, but happy to kind of start churning the wheels online and gaining some more relationships there. So yeah, look me up, Ryan Anderson. You'll find me. I know obviously we're already connected, and we'll take care of the rest.
I can't wait till I get to go to Boston next year. It's gonna be one heck of an experience now.
Hell yeah, brother.
So guys, make sure you head on over to our website, check out our shirts. George has got the Pesky Podcast logo shirt.
Ooh.
I got the Me Casas as Sue Casas. We just dropped a few more shirts. We got the Turner Tough shirt. We've got the Halkamania shirt. How closed out the last game of the season looked, sharp. So also head on over to wherever you sit there and listen to your podcast, Apple, Spotify, iHeart. Download us. Go to YouTube. Check us out if you want to watch the live version. But for myself, for the OG George, and for our new good friend Ryan Anderson, check us out next time on the Pesky Podcast.